With manufacturers fighting for every sale they can get, it's no surprise that the world is crammed full of cars that fill just about every need. Buckies, SUVs, 4x4s, luxury cars, family cars, sports cars, all serving the specific needs of their owners. But there is one type of car of which there are very few in the world, and that is the hatchback with one rear door. In fact, I can think of just two such cars, the Mini Clubman and this one, the Hyundai Veloster. The latest addition to the company's ever-expanding model lineup provides some interesting styling cues, not unlike some of its bigger cousins. It's a compact thing that manages a bit of aggression, but still leaves some questions. Why 3 doors? Why not have 4 and just be done with it? Hyundai will tell you that this door is on the safe side of the car, and by that logic, if you have to get in on the unsafe side, it's unsafe and it's more difficult. For me, it's idiotic. Have 2 doors or 4 doors, not some halfway solution that ends up being nothing more than a gimmick. My lack of progressive design sense aside, the Veloster is an interesting looking thing. It has a big smiley face and a rear end that wouldn't look out of place in a sci-fi movie, and yet it still manages to look fairly together. And it gets noticed a lot. I like it, but I can't quite figure out why. Maybe it's because it's just so very different to everything else on the road. If the orange paint job isn't loud enough for you, there is another shade of yellow that makes things even less subtle. 2 particular standout features for me are the wheels and the centrally located exhaust tailpipes. For now, you have only one engine choice in the Veloster, a 1600 4-cylinder with 103 kilowatts and 167 newton meters. You do have a choice of gearboxes though, between a 6-speed manual and a 6-speed dual clutch. Now, while I'm normally an avid punter of new technology, in this case it makes sense to go for the manual. The dual clutch setup's 0 to 100 time is 0.6 seconds slower than this car, which is a fair margin, even if it means you'll still only get to the 100 mark in around 10 seconds. With all those figures in mind, you realize pretty quickly that despite its slippery looks, this car isn't about pure performance. But that doesn't mean it's exactly sluggish either. By now, we're used to small cars with their small turbo engines and decent performance. This car doesn't have a turbo, so in theory it should struggle a bit, especially up here at the reef. But in reality, it's fine. It gets off the line and delivers its performance with very little effort. The only time it struggles noticeably is on the highway when you try call up a bit more power for an overtake or on an uphill. But it remains smooth and calm and doesn't have that screaming high revving sound that's fairly common to a lot of engines this size. With pure performance out of the window, it's pretty clear that Hyundai's engineers have concentrated on one particular aspect of this car. In here, it's all about the drive. The suspension is comfortable, the steering is easy but accurate, and the gear shift has got a nice weight and solidity to it. This isn't some hot hatch designed to be fast in a straight line only. This is a properly engineered drive. And that makes the Veloster very surprising indeed, because it looks like one thing but goes like another. It also has the kind of grown-up feel you'd expect from more premium brands, and that's especially true inside. The first thing you notice is how the layout wraps you up in comfort, and then there's the spec list, which is large. Some of the materials could be a bit more premium for the price, but the build quality is good. And overall, the impression is, without being rude about Hyundai, surprising. There are a few too many Veloster badges floating about the place, but that's a tiny complaint in what is otherwise a well-sorted cabin. Spec includes everything: iPod, Bluetooth, multifunction steering wheel, climate control, cruise control, and some very comfortable front seats. The rear seats are a different story though. Despite Hyundai's claims that rear passengers will fit comfortably, realistically, if you're anything over average height, you're going to feel the ceiling on top of your pip. And that rear door only makes things fractionally easier. There's still a bit of contortion that has to go on before you get yourself in. There is the question of who the Veloster is competing against. besides that other three-door car I mentioned earlier. For 260,000 Rand, which is what that car costs, you can get yourself an Audi A1 or a Mini Cooper. And that means the marketing for this car is going to have to be as interesting as its styling, because it has the drive, it has the spec, but it just doesn't have the cool factor. A surprisingly strong 1600 motor means the Veloster feels good around town with good instant power and performance. It's a car that gets noticed and one that has a premium feel to the drive and the interior spec, but it's still a long way away from being as cool as its competition.